Cause the player's gonna play. And the hater's gonna hate. Hey baby, I'm just gonna shake. I shake it off. Oh. Well, hello, hi, welcome. The name of the show is Politics. Although I call it Politics, and the title of this episode is Wonka, aka Jonka. My name is Presh, and it was the awards day for the program where I volunteered to tutor, and they played the song, at some point during the ceremony, and the song about how the media says nasty things about Taylor Swift and how she deals with it. But the genius thing here is that it's incredibly relatable, right? Everyone has negative things that try to hold them back, but you just have to, I'm checking my notes here. Shake it off, right? And also, why are we calling it Jonka? Well, if you've heard me refer to it in previous episodes, I've just been calling it Jonka because I'm not trying to steal a joke here, but on the Weekly Planet podcast that I love, they made a joke that Chalamet looks like the Joker, and they started calling him Jonka. And again, I'm not trying to steal the joke, but that Jonka name has pierced the membrane of my mind. And now, whenever I see him, that's all I just want to call him Jonka. My co-host suggested that we do Jonka, and I said, "Who? Are you talking about Jonka?" And so yeah. Speaking of my co-host, is not here actually because he didn't give me a good reason. He said his throat was sore, so I don't know. He should have said from sucking too much dick. Whoa! Well, I don't know. Is that homophobic? But the thing is, he's not gay, so how can it be homophobic if I say that? Anyway, I'm getting to some cleanup from last week. I have to apologize for the piss poor Marvel segment we did. I kind of sprang it on my co-host unexpectedly, so I don't blame him, but I blame myself because I kind of ran out of time to write my pitch, and yeah, it's definitely my fault. Alright, also we were discussing the US presidency's succession line, and we were wondering what the requirements are for being this House Speaker, right? There's only two requirements. One, a member of the House must nominate the person, and two, a majority of members need to vote for this person. So the House has 435 members, so that's 218 votes to win. Anyway, that being said, there's never been a speaker who was not a House member because I assume this would undermine the institution. They want to keep it within the House. They don't want to go into the garden with the riffraff like us. Anyway, also last week, my co-host said that Apple and Macintosh were separate companies, and Apple took over Macintosh, which is just not true. I don't know. I don't know what to say, right? Apple made the Macintosh named after engineer Jeff Raskin's favorite type of apple. That's that's just history. I don't know how to disagree. Anyway, so I'm going to get into the news for the week. I was watching a YouTube channel that I've mentioned on here before. It's called Dan Murrell, right? He does a weekly chart show where he examines the box office and gives his analysis on it. So this week he put forward that Disney has lost $1 billion at the box office this year with Indiana Jones, Haunted Mansion, The Marvels, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, The Creator, The Boogeyman, Wish, Elemental, A Haunting in Venice, and The Little Mermaid all being huge losses. Only Guardians of the Galaxy of the major properties turned a profit. So I have no commentary on this other than say wow, that's fucking wild, dude. The comparisons he was doing was alright, if you add up Avatar 2 and the Avengers Endgame and something else, and this takes such a huge amount away from that portion of money. So yeah, wild. If this is something you're interested in, I highly recommend watching the video. It'll be linked in the comments. The next news story. Vivek Ramaswamy, who we have spoken about before, made two horrific comments last week in a Republican debate, right? The first being, quote, "Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job?" All right. I'd usually ask my co-host, "Hey, do you know what January 6th is?" And he'll say, "I think it's," and then mention something that's definitely not January 6th. And then I'll say, "Anyway, on January 6th, Trump incited a riot that stormed the Capitol building." We have videos of him doing this, right? I don't even understand what an inside job even means in this situation. Like, did somebody trick Trump into doing it? Did they say, like, "No, it'll be good if you do this"? Like, I don't even know what he's saying. But, yeah. The second thing he said was, quote, "Great replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform." End quote, right? Again, to recap, the great replacement conspiracy theory is that non-white people from mainly like North Africa and the Middle East immigrating to Europe and America is a Jewish plot to make Christian white people a minority in, those countries, the European countries and America. Well, I guess Canada as well. That just gets rolled in. In one case, it was the right thing to do, right? Like I've said before, he's not running for president. He's running to be vice president or whatever cabinet position he can leverage. In the first case, I think it might work. Trump immediately likes anyone who says that he's innocent. In the second case, I don't think it's going to work, right? You can be as racist as you want, but the people you're trying to appeal to still see you as a non-white and will never vote for you, right? Also, the first time I mentioned this guy, I read his book, right? His parents are from India. He is the great replacement these fucking racists are talking about. He's an Indian coming from India to America and is, I presume, replacing a position that a white man may have held. So, yeah, they hate you, dog. I don't know, you're trying to appeal to people who hate you. But, a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. Anyway, the next story. Roger Jardine, an anti-apartheid activist turned banker, has launched a new political entity called Change Starts Now. I say entity because it's unclear what this man, or what this is. Is it a party? Right? This comes after Jardine stepped down from his position as chairman of FirstRand, which is the holding company that owns FNB, South Africa's second largest bank. Jardine was also previously the chairman of the think tank, the Center for Development and Enterprise. A think tank is an institution that researches and then advocates for certain issues. Based on this light reading I've done, the think tank he chaired is guided by a neoliberal ideology, so similarly to like a Hillary Clinton or Pete Buttigieg. And I bring up Buttigieg because he also worked in a think tank. I can't remember now. I think it's a Center for American Progress. But a lot of these think tanks are just like used to justify whatever, like lowering tax program that they had put forward in the first place, right? These think tanks only put forward legislation that help bourgeois causes. It's very, very rare that you find a left-wing think tank. Yeah. Anyway, so this announcement was extremely light on details. It read a lot like an Obama announcement. Instead of giving details, everything that was said was some mealy-mouthed bullshit like, quote, well, this is not a real quote. So I don't know why I'm saying quote. I'm just giving an example, right? "I want to empower people by giving them access to solutions to optimize against and combat the severity of issues in their communities," which, is just a bunch of words. And again, he didn't actually say that. I'm just saying that's how it read to me. That's my analysis, right? It could also be like a meaningless platitude like, hey man, I'm not left wing, I'm not right wing, I'm for moving forward. Which I always love that. That's a very funny that's a very funny line. Where am I now? So it's not clear what he identifies as and what the ideology of this entity is, but based on the fact that he was chairman of a private bank and chairman of a neoliberal think tank, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that I think that he thinks that he is not a right winger, right? He probably identifies as a centrist, but if you sat down with him and quizzed him on his beliefs, I believe like 90% plus of his answers would be like some right wing drivel, right? Again, I have no evidence, but I'm allowed to wager. Gambling is legal in South Africa. But anyway, why do I bring this up? Well, first of all, it was on the homepage of News 24, which is where I get my news for the week when I'm preparing this document. So there's that. But also, I think this is the perfect opportunity to instigate beef and get another enemy, right? Why are Batman and Spider-Man two of the most popular comic book characters of all time? It's because they have an extensive rogues gallery, right? Like most characters, they just have like one character that they fight and then like maybe one or two. Like you think of Doctor Strange, right? It's like Dormammu. Who's the big Doctor Strange? Well, Nightmare. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like 2 or 3 villains and then, they team up with the Avengers and they have Avengers villains. But like Spider-Man and Batman, they just have their own huge rogues gallery. And occasionally it's so big that like Green Arrow will sometimes take over some characters that Batman is fighting. Sometimes the Teen Titans will, fight against one of the villains Batman is fighting, etc. That's what makes them great, right? So we need to build up an extensive rogues gallery, and currently the only one we have is Ruben Brigetti, the US ambassador to South Africa. If you don't recall, he lied about South Africa selling arms to Russia, and then the repo rate went up, making my bond more expensive. And since Change Starts Now is a new organization, I thought we could get in on the ground floor and claim them as enemies before anything potentially big happens with them. We can be like, yeah, we've always hated you, motherfucker. We were there. We were on ground zero of hating. That's my hope by doing this segment. Anyway. Next piece of news. Nicholas Hoult, aka the About a Boy, because he was the character of the boy in the movie About a Boy, so I call him the About a Boy. And he's not a boy anymore because he's been cast as Lex Luthor in the new, Superman Rebirth, right? Which is the 4th of the core 5 Superman characters after Corin Sweat as Big Blue, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Skylar. Well, we didn't mention Skylar Gisondo, but he's, in terms of look, perfect casting. He's the oldest son of Danny McBride on The Righteous Gemstones. He's if you've never seen that show, watch it. Incredible show. And this guy, he's not really the standout character, but he is pretty great, right? Anyway, he's been cast as Jimmy Olsen. The only one left is Perry White, who's the their boss at the Daily Planet. I like Nicholas Hoult. We covered him on Renfield earlier this year, right? I don't know how I feel about him as Lex Luthor. We've never gotten a great Lex Luthor in live action, right? Or live action movies. The Gene Hackman version was like a real estate scammer. Kevin Spacey's an even worse version of that. And I just burst into laughter every time Jesse Eisenberg spoke in the Snyderverse. Who allows this man to do public events, Somebody high up at the company should be like, all right. Every time this guy gives a speech, he has like a mental breakdown and he starts talking about like demons and angels and like God killing or man killing God, and in terms of protecting my shares in the company, I'd be like, listen, somebody needs to rein this guy in. He's out of control. He's unhinged. But that being said, I'm always open-minded. I'll see how the movie plays out, and I'll make my not decision, I'll see how I feel about it then, right? The next story. Shohei Ohtani's $700 million deal with the Dodgers. It's the highest value sporting contract in the world, although it's split over 10 years. And an additional thing we found out after the fact is Ohtani is deferring some of those wages until the end of the contract. So he's not going to be paid that amount every year, or that 700 million split over 10 years. He'll be paid 2 million each year, and then the rest of that 700 million will be paid after 10 years. Which I don't think is good, because what if 10 years is a very long time? What if the entire economy has collapsed, something like that? It's just very, well, who am I to say? He must have a lot of money already as a player. I'm led to believe, based on the stuff I've read this week, that this guy is both the best batter and thrower for the baseball team he played for before whatever team bought him, the Dodgers, right? Yeah, and people always like to say oh, look at these bloody overpaid athletes, blah 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 blah. Listen, in terms of leftist ideology, the players are the workers in terms of a sporting organization. They do the work that brings value to the organization. People would not watch that sport if not for the players, or the players and the coaching staff, etc. Right? So I don't mind players getting paid. That players, I'm saying players like football players, baseball players, whatever, they are one of the only groups that are actually getting paid somewhere close to what they're worth, right? I wish that, now obviously every industry isn't making hundreds of millions, but I'm saying the amount that they're earning is closer to what they deserve than, say, a person working, I don't know, at a paper company. Just before I started recording, I saw a tweet about Dunder Mifflin, the place from The Office, so that's what I was thinking, paper company. But anyway, Cristiano Ronaldo has a smaller contract of 536 million, but it's only over 2.5 years, making it the highest average value, per year. The last story that I have this week is a bit of a fuck up, because I was hoping my co-host would be here because he's more into this. Baldur's Gate won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, right? And again, that's really all I know. I've never played this game. I don't even know Baldur's Gate 1 was a game. So yeah, I'm hoping next week he can come in and give a bit of a Game of the Year awards corner, right? But yeah, congratulations to the Baldur's Gate 3 team. It must be nice to will win this award, so congratulations to them. Alright, now let's get into some context for the movie. Wow, this is a problem with me recording alone. I kind of just zoomed through it. We 20 minutes in, we're already into the movie, so probably gonna be less than an hour. Let's see how it plays out. Right, context for the movie. So I don't really need to provide context, as this is a prequel. It tells the origin of Willy Wonka, the antagonist from Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and a possible Nazi collaborator. This is the third live-action movie featuring the character after the 1971 and 2005 adaptations of the book. It's unclear whether this is a prequel to the book or one of the movies. Based on what I saw, I have no idea. Um, I will say that the main character or the main actor, Tim, is awful, right? I don't think I've ever seen him in a role that I liked. Unfortunately, he's an attractive man, so I think a lot of people are blinded by horniness, but I see through it. He's not good. He's a very technically limited actor, right? Lastly, the movie is directed and co-written by Paul King, who is best known as the director of Paddingtons 1 and 2. These movies have a cult following, and I think it's because Paddington exudes this warmth and positivity. Pedro Pascal said it best in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Paddington made me want to become a better man. So basically, people view Paddington in the same way that I view Superman. It's, he inspires you. That's the word I was looking for. Anyway, into my thoughts for the movie. So first of all, I thought this was a poor characterization of Wonka. Like I said, it's unclear what this is a prequel to, but I just assumed it was the 1971 movie because it's the most beloved and famous adaptation of the character. Now, I don't want precisely the same performance as Gene Wilder because, as the tagline says, this is about how Willy became Wonka. I expected a different performance, but we can see the seeds of what he will become. And this movie presents an entirely different character. And that character's name is Paddington. Because that's, I think, the main character, or not main character, the director only has one move, and that is make a Paddington movie. And he's been quite lucky that 2 of his first 3 movies have been about the character Paddington, so it's worked out quite well. But unfortunately, I don't think it's worked out in this movie, right? For me at least, right? Wonka is entirely deranged in the 1971 movie. He's like, you don't know if he's actually killing these children or what the fuck is happening, right? Up until the end, which I won't spoil. Maybe he's a killer, right? In the commentary, I was joking that he was a Nazi collaborator. Could you see Wonka in this movie being a Nazi collaborator? I rest my case, right? Unless I missed something, he's the only character to appear from the 1971 movie. Slugworth is mentioned in it, but he never shows up in the movie, so that's all that needs to be said about adaptation. In terms of new characters, I felt like the banking cartel wasn't scary enough. They don't strike fear, they just seem like buffoons. I understand that this is a kid's movie, but just like the characterization of Wonka, this movie is missing that dash of danger, Far more scary are the laundromat people who trick people into forced labor. I love that idea, but the plot about them and Wonka's basement friends, I don't really find that interesting at all. Sorry. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but I thought the interesting stuff was him making the chocolates and fighting the cartel. All that stuff for the basement friends kind of sucked. Right. Then I did not like the acting in this movie, right? Tim was poor, and I thought the worst part was his singing. But the banking cartel and basement friends were also uninspiring. I like the performances and characterization of precisely 3 people, right? Number 1, Olivia Colman as the laundromat owner was incredible, right? She may be our best working female actor. Can you tell me who's better? Now, I'd usually throw over to my co-host and, I don't know what he'd say. But I was thinking about this before I started recording, and I'm like, maybe Emma Stone. I really like her. I really like Kirsten Stewart. I really like Viola Davis. I really like... Well, there's a few people I like, but those were the first 3 that came to mind, things that blew me away in the past couple of years. The second thing I loved was Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa. He was incredible as well. He said that he hated filming using this performance capture, but Um, Despite hating it, I thought he navigated it wonderfully well. He's yeah, he's probably my standout from this movie. I don't know. Uh, then third, we have Rowan Atkinson in a delightful cameo as the corrupt priest. Um, I also liked Wonka's mother, but she was in it for so little, and I don't think I should include her because, she was barely a character. Although I did enjoy their relationship, and it's not really. It's a relationship told only from his side, right? We barely see her, and she's barely a character. His relationship is more so with the candy bar that she gave him, right? Um, I thought their whole relationship was sweet and endearing. I thought it was lovely. Sorry for being a little bit sentimental. Sorry if it offends, right? I also thought the CGI was outstanding. Um, the look and the texture of the giraffe was incredible. It was. I know it's going to sound a bit cliche, but it felt like I could reach out and touch it. That's how real it looked, right? The other stuff like the Oompa Loompa effects and Wonka's various chocolate fucking people up, towards the end where they poison his chocolate with the Yeti hair or whatever it is. Yeah, they all also look great, but the giraffe is what I keep coming back to in my mind. Like, I watched this 2 days ago, so I've been thinking about it, and I just keep thinking about the giraffe. Incredible. I'm gonna go watch it again just because of the giraffe. The next thing is the production design. I love the costumes and sets. It felt like a magical. Well, it's not. It's unclear what time period this is. Is this even in our world? It feels like a magical world. A lot like I don't know. Like in a Disney movie, it's just like a kingdom from somewhere in the world. It doesn't really matter. This is what it looked like. It could be like their costumes doesn't really tell you much about who they are. They could be from basically anywhere, right? But yeah, the banking cartel suits were fucking banging, right? Especially the main guy, the black guy, that blue suit. Every time he came into on screen, I was like, ooh, shit, that suit. Oh my god, the suit. Right. The police uniform also had a very distinct look. It's like I don't know. It felt very French to me, or French or British. Obviously, I have no idea, but yeah, I think it looked a lot better than Barbie, this movie. But that might be a hot take. I don't know. I don't like to use the phrase hot take because it's like you can't say something's a hot take. You just say something and then other people will determine the heat of the take. So yeah, I'm just gonna say that I think this is better than Barbie. Other people can determine the temperature. I have my own temperature cooker which I cook my meat at. I have my own temperature. You can have your own temperature. People don't need to have the same temperature. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, right. There's only one thing I want to criticize in this production design element, right? And that's Wonka's fit. I don't want to be rude, but that outfit is atrocious, right? On this week's commentary, yeah, like I squealed in delight when Wonka came on screen because that's how powerful the shoe trouser combination was on him, right? This Jonka fucking stinks. Yeah, and also with Gene Wilder, his crushed velvet coat so much better than this guy. And you could be like, Presh, well, it's a prequel. He's not there yet. Blah blah blah. I'm not saying it has to be the exact same. I'm saying this fit sucks shit. Make something better. It doesn't have to be as good as Gene Wilder. It just doesn't have to be awful like this. The next thing is I love the humor in this movie. Stuff like when he first arrives and he gets charged a daydreaming fee, or in the laundromat when they ask him if he used the minibar and he says minibar, and they reply, yeah, the minibar of soap. That's another one that made me cackle. What I didn't like was Keegan-Michael Key's character becoming severely overweight. I understand the joke is, well, his chocolates are so incredibly delicious that he can't help himself but eat. But yeah, I didn't enjoy that. Sorry. Not for me. Right. I mentioned Tim's lack of singing ability earlier, but I did not enjoy the musical aspect of it in general, right? It wasn't marketed as a musical, and I don't think it adds anything of value to the movie. However, I did love the score of the movie. It had a lot of zany trumpets, which was fun and added texture to the world. The people, so yes, I mentioned this 2 minutes ago, because once again I I have the thing open on the side here, only 31 minutes in, and I should stop fucking drawing attention to it, but I'm just worried I'm not gonna hit 1 hour. That's the promised land, 1 hour. Anyway, let's get back to our. So like I mentioned about 2 minutes ago, his chocolates were poisoned by Yeti sweat, which fuck people up. It turned their heads yellow and blue and all that, right? They burnt his fucking shop down. That was wild. And I don't know, in America, right? When there's a riot, because it's usually like a black person is murdered by the police, and there'll be like a riot and like places are burnt down. That's not like, people don't want to burn down shops, right? And places like that. It's in the real world, when something bad happens, you get justice. Oh, that's what the hope is, right? That's not always the case, but if a police officer kills somebody, who are you gonna get justice from? Who watches the Watchmen, etc., etc., right? So if there's no one who's going to provide justice, people take justice into their own hands, and they, start a riot. They maybe burn down a building. I don't agree with this, but I'm saying, do you see how people feel corralled in that they feel the need to do this, that they're not going to get justice unless there's a threat of violence or etc., right? That's not the case in this movie. Wonka or Jonka is entirely in the wrong, right? And you can say, oh well, his shirt was poisoned. They listen. You need to have what's it called? Things in place because you're dealing with food, right? You can't just be like, at a normal restaurant, be like, oh well, somebody came in and poisoned stuff. You have to have people watching the fucking food, That's outrageous. So yes, all these people that got turned into fucked up things and colors could go to a judge, and the judge would entirely be on their side, and they would sue Wonka or Jonka, and they would make millions. But this was an unhinged response to burn his fucking shop down. Christ on a cracker, man. That was outrageous. Anyway, the next thing is Matt Lucas, who plays the member of the banking cartel in yellow. He's clearly Hitler, right? Like Adolf Hitler, like the Führer. He has the precise same mustache and hairstyle as Adolf Hitler. And if it's not Hitler himself, then there has to be some reference, or, So I googled Matt Lucas Hitler. No results. I googled Matt Lucas Wonka Hitler. No results. I googled Wonka Hitler. No results. I googled the name of Matt Lucas's character in the movie, which I cannot recall right now. No results. And yeah, once again, all I want is credit if in 10 years from now somebody cracks it and they're like, oh, actually, this guy was Adolf Hitler because of this. I want credit. Again, I was on the ground floor. I was on the ground floor. This is the exact same as my beef with whatever the fuck that entity is. Change starts now. We're on the ground floor here. This is. I'm gonna. I'm gonna title this episode "On the Ground Floor" because there's so many things we're getting in on the ground floor here. But yes, if it turns out I'm right about this Matt Lucas being Hitler, once again, I want my credit. That's all. I want a golden statue built of me in the middle of the world. I don't know where that is, but I want it. I want a statue. Anyway, so I started thinking about the banking cartel. Like, okay, if that guy is Hitler, who are the other two guys? And nothing immediately stood out to me. So if you have an idea or something, maybe send a tweet, etc. Yeah. Then the golden ticket reference, where he finds the golden ticket in his mother's chocolate. Awful. Again, awful. Everything needs to be a reference. Everything needs to be a extended universe, whatever. Just, the Oompa Loompa, the little flute that he's playing is the flute that Wonka plays in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. So I assume he's going to get that flute from him later in life, and that's fine. That's understandable. Why would his mother leave a golden ticket for him? It's a reference for reference sake, and it really rubbed me the wrong way towards the end of the movie. It's just I just felt gross, man. Gross. Yucko. Right? Now, I said I didn't like Jonka's little basement friends, but I did love the credit closing sequence, to get some closure on their lives. The movie's not about them, but it's nice when characters get their, I don't want to say due, but they, you find out about them a little bit, and I think that was cool. Yeah. That's my thoughts on the movie Wonka. Very weird, again, doing this alone. I usually like to bounce off my co-host, but yeah. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. And let's move on to recommendations, where, first of all, I watched Changeling. It's a Clint Eastwood movie starring Angelina Jolie. I remember seeing the trailer for this when I was a kid. I think this came out in 2008, 2009. I was maybe 10 or 11. And I saw this and I thought, wow, that looks scary. Guess what? It was. It's about the police and, who watches the Watchmen, etc. Yeah. Anyway. Right. It's somewhere between an 8 or 9, but I'm leaning towards a 9. But really stylish, well acted, well paced movie. Yeah, so Changeling. Then I have The Ides of March. It's a political thriller starring my guy the Goose, Ryan Gosling, George Clooney, who's also the director, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Paul Giamatti. Just 4 top guys. Well, I don't know. Clooney is not. I wouldn't put him up there as a great actor, but the other 3, incredible, right? You would think this whole thing would be right up my alley because it's a political thriller, has a bunch of actors I like, but unfortunately the script is amateur and clearly trying to rip off 1993's The Firm. I gave it a 7 because it's beautifully shot, but even now as I'm describing it, I'm thinking about bumping it down to a 6. But yeah, it could be fun if you enjoy. But yeah, I enjoy this genre and I don't enjoy it, so I don't know. I just don't have the answers. Sorry for if you came here for answers. Anyway, then Bradley Cooper's The Maestro. This is a masterclass in the comparison of good and bad acting. Bradley Cooper is horrifically overacting, and on the flip side, Carey Mulligan is wonderful. She's incredible. She's currently my favorite for Best Actress of this year. That's that's how stark the contrast is in this movie. It's like I would give him a Razzie and her not just a nomination. She's my favorite for the add Carey Mulligan to that list when I said of women, the best women actors, right? The film is fine. I gave it a 6. It's kind of boring. Just I kind of felt like I wasted my time watching that movie. Very boring. Anyway, next I watched Bad Times at the El Royale. So anytime this movie has been recommended to me, I've been told that this movie is severely underrated, and that is 100% true. This movie is great. I don't know the term for this, but it's told from multiple perspectives and unfolds like a play. The movie that came to mind was The Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino. I'm going to lightly spoil both movies, so please skip ahead like 30 seconds if this is an issue for you. So, in both cases, there's a third act twist that I don't think works. Due to the structure of these types of movies, the filmmaker baits you into thinking that all the pieces have been set on the board, but in the third act, they give you a perspective of a character you weren't thinking about that breaks the story wide open. In both movies, I feel like this is unearned. I gave it an 8, and I gave it a point for Chris Hemsworth's abs alone. This guy's body is incredible. It's it's like, I know you see him in Thor, but I don't think of him like, I just think of him as Thor, you know? But like in this movie, when you see his body, I'm like, oh my god. He's great, right? Anyway, finally, I watched Indecent Proposal, which I was staying at my grandparents' house one day watching TV, and I saw an ad come up for this movie. The premise was that this guy offers a couple $1 million to fuck the wife. And I distinctly remember Demi Moore like semi-naked on a bed covered in money, and she was throwing the money up and it rained on her. Unfortunately, it didn't. That scene did not happen in the movie because, well, I was like a kid when I saw that ad. I was like it was maybe like 2011, but now this is the first time I've seen it, and that scene is not in the movie. I may have imagined that that scene, right? Since then, I've been using indecent proposal as a verb whenever I see like just a proposal. Someone's like, I'll do this if you do this. I'm like, oh my god, it's an indecent proposal. It's so indecent. That's not decent at all, goddammit. Right. Ideally, you want to have a wife hot enough to get offered an indecent proposal, but you don't want to be as big of a fucking chump as Woody Harrelson in this movie, so, you know, the plot of Indecent Proposal unfolds on you. As for the movie itself, incredibly predictable. I gave it a 6. And, so thank you for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, give a like, etc. Importantly, it needs to be a 5-star review. Please subscribe on Patreon to listen to our movie commentaries. You can find our links at PAICIP.com. That's PAICIP.com. Please tell a friend, tell their friend to tell a friend, tell a family member. Bye.